Hello there and welcome to my channel. My name is Panu and I am building this 15-meter cruising sailboat within this channel. But there is also additional things I want to show you, like this, my current boat, which is 27 feet small sailboat here in Lake Päijänne, which is actually the 12th largest lake in Europe. I'm currently sailing with this boat on the summertime here in the lakeside, and you may know that I converted this boat into electric boat. I think it was 5 years ago already. Anyway, this is an additional video to my channel called SeaCamel Tech Corner, and in this video I want to kind of go through a little bit of the weak link of the electric sailboat that kind of occurred me last summer. So let's climb in there and I'll show you what I mean. All right, we are in here. It's a little bit of a mess because everything is just stuffed in the boat for the winter. And yeah, the overview of the system here is that we have the lithium battery I did a year ago. It had originally 4 lead-acid batteries, but they kind of died. And the lithium battery is very, very nice for this application. There is the old sail drive and there is the motor mount for the electric motor. And as you can see, the motor is off from there, and also there is no charger over there, as you can see. So what I wanted to talk about is the weak link of electric propulsion. I have had it now for 5 years and I really like it. It's just no going back into any kind of combustion. And one additional good thing is that all the propulsion parts are actually in my backpack. So everything except for the battery fits in one backpack in this size of a boat. Probably much larger boat will actually fit nicely in here as well. This is the original electric motor I had. This is 3 kilowatt BLDC motor. And the thing with the BLDC motors that they are permanent magnet motors, where the rotor, the thing that rotates and moves the shaft, doesn't have any kind of physical electric contact with anything else. So there is just varying magnetic fields that rotate the motor. And the basic principle is super simple. There is just magnets and some coils and varying electric current on those. However, now when we come to the weak link, it lies behind this 4th cable that has many thin wires. These wires include a temperature sensor, but they also include Hall sensors, which are magnetic sensors. And that comes into the fact that this kind of motor always needs a controller to rotate it. So here you can see there's these 3 poles and power in with those additional ones. And this connector here includes all the controlling things. So in order for this to work, the motor needs to have sensors to tell this controller where that magnetic field, those permanent magnets actually are. And those sensors inside the motor, they are the weak link. So what happened last summer in late July, I believe, was that some kind of thunderstorm or something like that surge from the grid came and broke my chargers in this boat. I had 2 chargers, one for the 48 volt system and one for the 12 volt system just for the fridge. It has separate battery over there. But both of those chargers broke. Nothing else seemed to be broken except for the sensors inside the motor. So I was planning a trip to over there, Lake Päijänne, for a few days, and I came to the boat and suddenly nothing worked. So I measured the sensors, and 2 of the 3 sensors that are inside in this motor were broken. So the quick fix for the rest of the season was to buy another motor, because these are pretty cheap. This is 300 euros or something like that, plus taxes. So these really are not expensive things to have. And the problem, however, was that this broke as well a little bit later. This worked for a couple of weeks. I'm not sure what happened with that, but what I'm kind of suspecting is that the surge broke this motor controller as well. So I connected new motor with this controller and it broke the new motor and its sensors. And that's really, really annoying, because now I have two broken motors, and yeah, I just need to get this thing working again. So that is the weak link, and that is kind of a lesson to learn. Those small electric things, those sensors, if they broke, they can crimp your boat pretty well. Well, this is the downside of electric motors, obviously, because there's electronics involved and they are pretty sensitive to high currents or high voltages. They can break. But I don't want to compare to combustion engine because, well, obviously this has so much less parts and overall kind of complexity than a combustion engine. And these are very cheap because this motor and controller pack is less than 1,000 euros. If I'm going for a long trip, for example, or around the world or something, it's pretty easy to grab 2 or 3 of these and a couple of extra motors into the boat. They don't weigh almost nothing and you always have spares. So it's really not a big deal, I think. And that's why I also want kind of make these my boat things from the off-the-shelf parts rather than kind of custom marine stuff, because if that kind of stuff breaks for some reason, they are much more expensive to replace. And these you can just order from web store and brought it to you, and they are not specifically for boats. They are just universal motors. You can make a motorcycle or something from this kind of motor if you want. Anyway, now what my plan is to fix this thing is to go step by step, because the fact is that you don't actually need those sensors to rotate this motor. You just need a varying magnetic field. But problem is that this controller that I had, this doesn't have option to disable those sensors, and I suspect this is broken also. So what I did was I brought a new controller. This is the same brand, Goldenmotor controller, but this is a much more sophisticated version of that. It has Bluetooth and stuff like that. I get much more information out of this thing than the previous one. And what I have learned, that it should be able to disable those sensors. And what that does is those sensors are essential when you're rotating the motor very slowly and you need high torque. For example, car, motorcycle, or something like that. In case of a boat, we have the propeller in the water, and initially when you start rotating the propeller, there is really not any kind of resistance at all at first. So in this case, using these motors without sensors should work, but as mentioned, I don't know if this works. And this is the first step. I try. The second step is that I try to fix the sensors inside the motor. So I haven't opened this yet. It is pretty hard to open, I believe, and I don't have the tools right now to do that, so that's why I haven't done it yet. But if that controller, the new controller, doesn't work, I want to try to fix those sensors. There are tiny, very cheap components inside the motor, and it should be, well, not properly easy, but straightforward anyway to fix if I can get this thing open. And if that doesn't work, if it's impossible to open this, I will order a third motor. So then I have 2 broken motors and 1 working, and I hope that eventually will get this working. So what I am here now, before this boat is in the water, I want to test this new controller. And for that I need to install them into the boat. And I also have a new charger here. Enough jammering right now. Now I'm going to put these in temporarily over there, charge the batteries a little bit, and then we'll try if this thing works without the sensor. If there's an option there that enables me to disable the use of those sensors.
A few moments later.
All right, now the thing is pretty much connected. There's three phase wires connected to the controller. Oh, I need to connect this. It does the sensors, and there's also actually a temperature sensor in here, additional of those hull sensors. And then there is this minus from the battery, plus from the battery, a couple of other things. And the good thing about this is that the wiring is pretty much the same. So this is throttle, there's a reverse button, and then there's this ignition key thing that activates the thing. So yeah, now let's go to the cockpit and try this out and install the app for the phone to check out what options we have in here. All right, the controls are here. The first button is the contactor. Okay, I can hear a beep. All right, I got it hooked up, and yeah, it started to work, but yeah, the sensors are broken, and it just beeps this 9 times. And from this table that came with the controller this time, you can see that 9 beeps is motor main sensor. And the bummer is that I wished that I could change the settings in that controller to disable the sensors. But apparently that is not possible. I got other information, but it was a false information, and yeah, it just doesn't work. You can't disable the sensors from that controller. However, this new controller has a lot more settings overall. There is plenty of really usable settings in that. So I'm really pleased that I got the new controller. Now I at least I know that I have one working controller. But I'll try to test the other motor as well to check if that is behaving any differently. I really doubt that, but yeah, the next thing to do is to open this motor and try to change the sensors. I'm not sure if I'm able to do that, at least the way that the motor doesn't break, but unfortunately I have 2 of those. Unfortunately, it really doesn't matter because it won't work anyway, so yeah. Let's now jump to somewhere to try to open this motor, or that other one. I believe I try to actually open that one first, because that's the older one, and this is pretty much brand new. And yeah.
Day 2.
Now I have this motor in my desk, and basically I believe only thing we need is a Allen key set and lock ring pliers. We'll see how this goes. I believe this seam can be attached with some kind of adhesive, so it might be quite hard to get off, but we'll see. And we most probably need to unscrew these wire thingies here as well, so let's see. All right, this is a bearing holder, I believe. It says Japan in the bearing. That's a good sign. These are just scratches. I peeled the plastic thing out with the screwdriver, so no worries there. I just want to clean this up first before opening anything to avoid any debris going into the motor. That could be a bad thing. That was actually surprisingly easy. I just used knife, put it here, and hit with very lightly with the hammer, and it just went in there and peeled this off. This should be loose now, this top section here. I just need 2 hands, unfortunately. And we got it open. Okay. Seems there is a thermal paste in this area right here on the lid. That's of course to get the heat off from the windings to the top. Where is this heatsink? I can see the problem now, because over there you can actually see the sensors. Those three apparently are the hull sensors. I was hoping to kind of get a good view inside from here so that the sensors could be right in here, but no. So this interior assembly is loose, so I probably could lift this off from here to get a look, but the problem is that the rotor here has very strong magnets, and that might be a problem. We'll see. I try to get a view to the other side of these sensors. That's a bummer, because this overall construction is so super simple, and those sensors are the thing that can break. They should be easily repairable, and making them like that is that's just bad engineering in my opinion. All right, I got it open from the other side. This is the housing, goes on like that, and this is the other end. Really simple. Bearings are good. They seem to work well, and they are easy to replace if needed. That's good. And yeah, here you can actually now see the wiring coming from here into there. And I should just get this rotor off. This is the only moving part of the thing. And it has very strong magnets there. And apparently it's impossible to remove this from there by hand. If I pull there, nothing really happens, because the magnets try to pull into this iron core here strongly. So I need some kind of tool to pull this off. It is just on the bearing on that side. I think if I get this off, I could get a good access for the sensors, because this is actually axial flux motor. I didn't expect that, but of course the form factor should tell me that it's kind of wide and low. So of course it's axial flux, but I didn't kind of expect that really. All right, I try to pull it off or push it through, but there is just no way I can do it by hand. I need that tool, the puller tool, that side, to remove the rotor, and then we can get access to those sensors better, I believe. So, to be continued.
Day 3.
All right, now I got this pulley thing. I'm not sure what this is called in English, but anyway, now I try to push the rotor off. And I really need to be quite careful, because those magnets are so super strong. So if this kind of slips away and the magnets get caught again, it will slam itself back, and that is not a good thing. So yeah, I'm gonna be a little bit careful with this.
Moments later.
All right, I got it off. This is the rotor. This is the thing that creates the rotating force for the boat. This is tiny, much smaller than I kind of imagined. Anyway, these are pretty strong magnets, so I need to be a little bit careful with this. Let's put it away up there. And here we have the stator, and these are the sensors we are talking about. They might be actually exchangeable, but they have some sort of goo over them. And maybe I could get these off and try to figure out what kind of sensors they are. We'll see. As mentioned, this is not made to be repaired. Not maybe as bad engineering as I first thought, but still pretty bad, because, well, they are not exchangeable. They should be able to change these very easily, because they are basically the only thing that can break in this kind of motor, addition to the bearings, which are actually easily replaceable.
20 minutes later.
All right, I got rid of the top side as well. And here you can now see a little bit better. Those sensors, they are actually soldered from this side. And you can barely see the soldering joints there. I think that is doable. The sensors themselves go into those slots and they were glued in with some kind of epoxy adhesive, and that glue on the other side, I believe that is for keeping them still, for not vibrating, I think. But yeah, I think this is actually doable. I now just need to find same sensor size. So those should be easily available, I believe. We'll see if there's any writing on them. I could try to figure that out. But yeah, overall this seems to be doable. Not very easy, but not impossible. If we take a little bit of a look, this rotor again, this ring of magnets is actually for those sensors to sense. So I don't actually think that the position of those sensors in this direction is super critical. Those slots will help them to orientate in the right position. So yeah.
72 hours later.
All right, I got new sensors from my local electronics store. They look exactly the same as the old ones, so I think these should be good. For removing them, I actually bought a new soldering iron, which has very small tip because my current soldering iron is quite large. So I have to take it here from the other side and remove those solders over there.
More moments later.
And just like that, we have the new sensors there, kind of on their places, not soldered yet. Probably the most difficult part was to remove the old solder in those tiny holes. But with this soldering sucker thing, this is basically just a small pump with spring inside. When you press this, it sucks air quickly in here. Hold it on the other side and heat up the solder from the opposite side and suck the solder out. That way I could get those holes cleared. And now I need to bend those new sensors on their places and then solder them from the other side. Sensors are in. I still want to measure them so that the continuity is right. The other side is very cramped and very small, so I'm not 100% sure if the soldering was a success, but I think I'll put this kind of together now and we'll jump back to the boat because my multimeter is over there. We'll open this and check the continuity, and if it is okay, we can put it on its place and test it. Exciting.
Later.
All right, back at the boat again. I now check the sensors with the meter and they look good and all the connections seem to be good. I am preparing to put back the rotor. I put this pulling thing in here, and now I'm gonna carefully lay it down on the rotor over there and hope that I can hold it so that it doesn't crash into this, because those magnets are super strong. So yeah, I probably won't be able to film this by myself right now, so let's see what happens.
12 seconds later.
Now the motor is back together. I still didn't put this back. I want to test it first. And yeah, I got the rotor back in. It did smash a little bit, but the key thing was that this top lid was on its place because the rotor sits against this bearing here. So if this wasn't there, it would have smashed right against those stator coils. So that was a good thing to have it on its place. And of course, because the bearing is in here, there would have been no place for the rotor without this lid. Anyway, now it's in, it rotates freely, feels good, and yeah, now I'm gonna test it, and I'm gonna test it before I open it again and put some goo or glue or something with those sensors, because now they are just floating free. Let's hook this now up and test it and see if it works. If it works, I'm so super pleased. If it doesn't, well, we'll see what happens then.
1 hour later.
Okay, now it is hooked up again. Let me put the main power on. Let there be light, and now we'll go to the cockpit and test the motor. Now we cross our fingers firmly. First we have to check that there is no wasp nest there, because it's the time of the year when the wasp start to make their new nests. Okay.
Two hours later.
Alright, I got a new power supply to test the sensors. So this is the harness for the sensors, and you input 5 volts plus to the red one, minus to the black one, and then these yellow, green and blue should give the hull sensor output. And as I tested it, they all actually work. So I can take pulses of 5 volts from each of those sensors. So my fix is successful, but for some reason that controller doesn't work with that. Yeah, I probably need to go and check out the settings of the controller if there is something I can adjust, because as for my measurements, they all seem to work. When I rotate the motor, these all change from 0 to about 5 volts, a little bit under 5 volts, with the power supply supplying the 5 volts in there. So if this doesn't work, then it's kind of a mystery, and I don't know. Well, let's see.
1 hour later.
Yeah, so the conclusion of this project now, as it is, the sensors work. I measured them, they seem to work, but the controller doesn't still want to work with them. So I'm kind of out of ideas right now. I still have the other motor, but I really wouldn't like to open that just yet before I figure out what's wrong with this, because yeah, the sensors should be the same. They work exactly the same. I can measure the pulses coming from there, but for some reason the controller doesn't want to work with them. There's still one option though. I think I'll test the motor with the old controller as well, if that makes any difference, because now I'm not sure if it's the motor or if it's some setting in the controller. I tried to fiddle with all the settings with the hull sensor thing. I don't know, there's not many settings there, that many settings that I can fiddle with, and they didn't seem to have any effect. I'm still gonna try the old controller just to make sure. If that works, then I know that the motor works, and the issue is with the controller. I need to figure out that. That's the final thing with this video. If there's something now I know how to open this motor and how it works, it's not really that complicated. And yeah.
Eventually.
So, as you can see, the old controller, it kind of works, but just a little bit. But it doesn't give immediate error with the sensors. So there must be something going on with the sensors themselves in the motor. So yeah, I need to figure out that a little bit, and a little bit of a bummer that it didn't get in the working order within this video, but it was a nice thing to learn, to open this motor and see what's inside. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to give me a like and subscribe to the channel to follow the big boat build project, and we'll see you later. Maybe I'll get an update with this issue later. Bye bye.